Hey, what is up, bubs? I'm Hassan and you're watching The Basic Concept. So while the stimulus is still in progress, I really wanted to break down what's going on with your money in general and how this house of cards can come crumbling down if the things are not executed carefully in the next 3 to 6 months. So in this video, I will break down how multiple industries and things are affecting our way of living and why I say this is a house of cards. Stay tuned till the end so you can see how all of this comes together and why I believe that a stimulus is not only necessary, but is a must. Now, if you do find this information useful or helpful, give me a thumbs up and also consider subscribing as I do bring out new videos about personal finance, personal growth, and money every week. All right, well, let's get right into it. So the economy and the stock market are usually working together, but as you can see in the past couple of weeks or months, it has not been the case. The economy has been down, but the stock market is kind of going up and down against the economic results. Like one of the weeks we saw record-breaking unemployment rates, but the stock market actually went up. So let's discuss what's going on and all the elements of the stock market, the economy, and why I believe that the stimulus is a must and also must continue for at least 3 to 6 months until the economy is back into a stable ground. So let's talk about some numbers. We're currently sitting at around 30 million people that are unemployed. Now that number is huge. Keep that number in mind throughout this video. Now the unemployment hurts every single part of this economic machine. So those that are unemployed can no longer afford the basic necessities that they need. So they look for government benefits and assistance in that matter. While those programs are great, they're not really meant to handle 30 million Americans without a job. So the city and the state government have less money to spend because they're spending a little bit more money on unemployment benefits. Next up is going to be small and medium businesses that are running on fumes. So not only does that hurt the business itself, but it also hurts the rest of the economy. If the small and medium businesses have less sales, that means they're paying less taxes, which means that the city and state governments are receiving even less money in forms of sales tax and corporate taxes. And then there are companies that are not operational at all, which still have employees that are not receiving a paycheck, which means there's no payroll tax either. Now the big businesses are suffering as well. It's not just the small businesses. Big businesses work off of people's disposable income. Currently that's very limited. So people aren't going out there and buying $11 Starbucks and $1,400 iPhones. Next layer is going to be stocks. Now people right now are uncertain about the future and they're like very hesitant about investing their money into really anything. They want to save as much as possible because they don't know what's going to happen next, when their paycheck might stop, or when their next paycheck might be altogether. Now that also affects companies that didn't have cash on hand prior to the pandemic. And those companies must go into debt to continue payroll, utilities, etc. Because remember, the bailout was only supposed to be for companies that had 500 employees or less. Shake Shack was not part of them, but they snuck their way in. So the bigger companies that don't have sales or had cash on hand prior to the pandemic are also hurting, but I wouldn't feel too bad about them. And that brings me to the next layer of these cards. Big companies and corporations that have shady tactics. Now this is simply my opinion, so please try to keep the pitchforks to a minimum. Now the shady tactics that I'm referring to are the stock buybacks and hidden bonuses for CEOs and other higher ups in their companies. Now a stock buyback is when a company buys their own stocks back as a form of investment. And what that does, it basically reduces the number of outstanding shares, so the price of their share should go up, and it usually does. Now, there are a bunch of reasons for a company to do that, both good and bad. But to cut it short, some airlines were actually doing this as an investment strategy, but that also does reduce their cash on hand. So when the travel bans and the restrictions came around, they definitely needed a bailout. Now, that bailout was a great concept because it was designed to ensure that there are no massive layoffs due to this pandemic. However, that money does come from somewhere, so that does reduce the Fed's capability of assisting their local and state government. So the next layer is going to be investors not wanting to invest in this particular time. Now when you think of a typical investor, you think like stock market and real estate, but there's actually a third type of investor that are usually investing in mortgage-backed securities. Now I'll be honest, I don't know much about them other than what I've read and studied about the 2008 crash. So I can't really say for sure why they're not investing in this time, but they're just not investing. Let me explain in the way that I understood how mortgage-backed securities work. So say if you want to buy a house and you go to your bank and you get a 30-year fixed mortgage loan at 4 or 5% interest rate. Now that's a long time for the bank to try and make their money back, and waiting is not something a bank is really known for. Just try missing a few of your mortgage payments and see how patient they are. So instead, the banks have the capability of selling that loan to an investor that is willing to wait. Those type of investors are not buying the securities at this point, so the banks are hurting. So the next layer is oil. Now Saudi Arabia wants to undercut Russia. Russia wants to undercut Saudi Arabia. The result of this war is basically both of them producing more oil than is necessary. Now, when you have more supply than demand, the price of that item will go down. Now, oil prices going down can be good for consumers like you and I, but it's bad for businesses that rely on this, such as Exxon, etc. On top of this battle, there's also travel restrictions, so there's less consumption of oil as well. Now, I might have missed a few things here and there, but that's a lot of stuff intertwined together with very little support at the bottom. Now, with all of that going on and the economy still not open, what is the solution? In my opinion, stimulus was good. It gave the economy a slight boost. But the majority of that $2.5 trillion went to big corporations, and big corporations will always find a way or a loophole to give their CEOs, their higher-ups, a little more money in their pocket. Banks, for example, were given access to money they can lend. However, they prioritizes bigger businesses because bigger businesses means bigger loans, mean bigger profit. So in my opinion, the solution has to be more money directly into the hands of the consumers. Consumers like you and I buying things are the biggest part of this economic machine. For example, without consumers like you and I, you could dump trillions of dollars into big corporations, but without us buying anything, those corporations will still fail and the economy will still fail. So unless the country can be open in the next couple of weeks, the next round of stimulus, in my opinion, is going to happen in one form or another. Otherwise, this house of cards is going to continue to crumble until there's nothing left. And with it being an election year, I don't think that's going to happen. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe and hit the like button. And as always, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.